Assalamu alaikum everybody, this is Arabic teacher Sam and a very warm welcome back to these Wednesday walkthrough sessions that we're doing. I know this is a bit late in the day, I've been really busy all day. If you've been following my Instagram, you know I've been sending out books and stuff like that to all of the new students in the Arabic in 60 Steps program. Welcome to the program, you guys. So in this video what we'll do is, this is kind of a real introduction to Arabic poetry, an introduction to the study of Arabic poetry. We have very briefly talked about some poetry terminology in the Arabic language in my video where I unpicked a couple of baits of poetry of al-Mutanabbi, but we're not doing that today. We're going to begin by just going over some poetry terminology, and then we're going to get into the poem that we're going to be doing the walkthrough of. I mean, I don't know if we'll get through the whole poem, but we'll certainly do a good chunk of it, inshallah. So, first and foremost, I mean, obviously you can see on my screen that I have a poem up. This poem is called al-Quds, and if you don't know what al-Quds is the Arabic name for Jerusalem. Obviously, having the name Quds, obviously its root letters are to do with things being sacred. You know, we have this term muqaddas, obviously coming from the same root, which means sacred. So al-Quds is sort of the sacred place. You know, obviously why it gets that name. Interesting that it has a completely different sort of root to where we get our word Jerusalem from in English. And I think actually the Hebrew word is closer to the word Jerusalem, because I think I've heard it before, than it is to al-Quds, which is interesting too. And then obviously other European languages, I know in Spanish it's like Jerusalén or something like that is Jerusalem. But anyway, so as you can see, okay, we have the poem up here, and I want to just have it up on the screen so that I can demonstrate some terminology for you. So as you notice, Arabic poetry is very often in two columns. This is a habit of, you know, this is a very, very common habit of Arabic poetry, that it'll be in two columns, and it's called shi'r umudi, you know, because it's in you know, umud are literally columns. It's column poetry, you know, so that's very, very common. You know, it's quite a recent thing really to have poetry that doesn't do that in Arabic. I've never seen any poetry, you know, before sort of the modern era that doesn't do that. So that's a habit of, you know, of poetry in the Arabic language. So one of these couplets, if you like a whole thing from here all the way to here, we call that a bait. I'll put the term over here, bait. Arabic students will be saying, Sam, don't we learn in lesson 1 of your course that baytun means a house? We do indeed learn that. And it is the same word, but it has a different plural. When you're talking about houses and houses that you live in, you say baytun, buyutun is the plural. But when you're talking about verses of poetry, the plural is abiyat. Abiyat. So it is the same word, but has a different plural. Abiyatun. And then of one of those kind of couplets, if we can call it that in English, or one of those houses of poetry that we would sort of call it as a crude translation from Arabic, we have these two different parts, and we call it a shatr al-awwal and a shatr al-thani. The first shatr is called a sadr. Sadr, you know, sort of the chest of it, a sadr. Then the second part is called al-ajz. Now those are the terminologies for like the first half of that particular bait, and the second half of that particular bait. So that's how you refer to it. Poetry, you know, poetry in Arabic, just as it is in English, is of different kinds, you know, and we call it different things depending on how many abiyat are in it. If there's one bait, we actually just call it a netfer. You know, the word netfer is what we use for a poem. If you were to have a complete poem that literally begins one bait, that's the end of the poem, we call it a netfer. I'll just put the word down there. If it's between 2 and 7, I think you call it a maqtu'a. Maqtu'a, spelled like that. Because you have some really short poems. If it's a maqtu'a, then yeah, it's between, you know, this is just 1. But if it's between 2 and 7, we call it a maqtu'a. And then if it's more than 7, if it's 8 plus, then we call it a qasida. And the word for a poem generally is a qasida, the plural of which is qasaid. But it's always, like, I find it interesting that word isn't connected to the actual word just for poetry, which is shi'r. Shi'r. You know, the term shi'r is from, you know, feeling something. You know, ash'ar, be something. If if you know, أشعر بقوة, like I feel strong or something like that. Yeah, is to feel something. So sort of to do with feelings and stuff, as we know poetry is. Also the word sha'r means your hair as well. Sometimes there's quite abstract connections between words that come from the same roots, but regardless, okay, the word shi'r is the word for poetry. We're talking about a shi'r. So a poet is a sha'ir. Okay, a poet or a male poet is a sha'ir. Female poet is a sha'ira. Yeah, so a sha'ir. The plural of which for the masculine is shu'ara. Shu'ara. So the poets are the shu'ara. Or the female poets are the sha'irat. Yeah, sha'irat. So sha'ir and sha'ira. And then the plurals are shu'ara and sha'irat. Good. I think that's everything for poetry terminology wise. I think I'll just mention, like, obviously in English, even when you do like GCSE English literature here in the UK, you learn how to say things like simile and metaphor and stuff. So like a simile is tashbih. 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 And then a metaphor is majaz. Majaz. And if something's metaphorical, it's majazi. A metaphorical thing, shay majazi. It's metaphorical, it's not literal, it's majazi. And then, there is a last thing actually. Arabic poetry usually rhymes. Usually there is this, you'll notice this letter on the end of here. It is ha. On the end of here is the rhyming letter. The word we use for the rhyming letter, and you can use this for the Quran as well. For the rhyming letter in the Quran is the qafiyah. Qafiyah. Yeah, the qafiyah is the the term they use for the rhyming letter on the end. Really nice. Okay, so that's kind of just some really basic Arabic language poetry terminology, some words around analysing poetry that you should be aware of. But so we'll move into sort of why I've chosen this poem particularly, because actually nobody suggested it. A lot of people did suggest doing more poetry. It's in really high demand on the channel to do more walkthroughs of poetry, and particularly you guys wanted to do something modern. You wanted to do some modern poetry, but I actually chose this because a lot of you know that I spent a year in Palestine, and this poem is just really beautiful. I usually, when I'm going about my daily life, I don't really think about how much I miss Palestine. I don't really think about that. But when when I encounter things that I used to do a lot in Palestine, or things that I used to hear a lot when I was in Palestine, or even like I remember when I came home over the Christmas break, and then I went back. Afterwards, I realised when I got there how much I'd missed it and how much I loved being there. And when I was reading this to myself the other day, it just made me quite emotional, really, because I just miss it. And it's just a reality that for most of us who have been to Palestine, it's a reality that with the current climate, we may never go again. Do you know what I mean? Most of us get one opportunity in our lives to actually visit Palestine, and that I may never go again. I remember like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me four blessings of visiting a Masjid al-Aqsa, and I remember like after I left the first time I thought I'd never see it again. That when I left, said my farewells to Masjid al-Aqsa, and I thought I'd never ever see it again, and every time I went back and saw it again, I thought that would be the last time, and it was even more emotional every time I saw it again. So I knew that Allah had provided a blessing upon a blessing upon a blessing to let me see it again. And so this poem is by a poet called Tamim al-Barhgouthi. Tamim al-Barhgouthi, although he is a Palestinian, I think he's actually born in Cairo, because I think he's actually educated in Cairo and educated in America as well. I think he speaks English. Never heard him speak English, but I think he does speak English, and I think he can deliver his poems in English as well. Never heard him do so, but I think he is educated in English as well. His father is the Palestinian one, and his mother's actually Egyptian, and both of his parents were writers, and I think his dad was a poet specifically. I don't know if his mother was, but his mother was an Egyptian writer, and so there's a really beautiful video actually of Tamim al-Barhgouthi reciting his poem, I'll leave it in the description as well. And obviously I'll leave it up to you guys as well to decide whether you think I look like him as well, because my grandma certainly thinks I look like him. Might be the hair. But, so maybe I'll read one bait of it. Maybe I'll read one bait of it and we'll start on that a little bit, inshallah. And we'll just do a walkthrough of one bait. Every lesson I'll try to do maybe ثلاثة أبيات. I'll maybe do, three abiyat or 4 abiyat if we can. But, it depends actually. Like some of the content and some of the grammar of some of them is more complex than others. So some lessons we might just do 1, some we might do 6 or 7. So, how does it begin? It begins, مررنا على دار الحبيب فردنا عن الدار قانون الأعادي وسورها. So it begins, مررنا. There's the verb مرة. مرة يمر means to pass by something. مررنا على to pass by something. مررنا على دار الحبيب. So I'll look back here actually and we'll work through it. So Dar al-Habibi. It's not Habibi as in my love. It's the Habib. It's the beloved one. So Mararna. We passed by. It's in the past tense and the na on the end saying we were the ones who were doing it. We passed by. Dar al-Habibi. So Dari. This is an idafa, by the way. What's going on here? We have our mudaf and our mudaf ilay. Here. So we have the house. I mean, dar does mean a house as well. Bayt is a house, but dar is more like a dwelling. A bayt, the word bayt kind of corresponds more to what we in sort of modern times think of as being your house. It doesn't just mean a room. I know Libyans, in the dialect of your Egyptian brothers and sisters, you might use the word dar for ghurfa, for your room, but dar here does mean a house or a place where someone lives. So we passed by the house of a beloved one, right? We don't know who the beloved one is at the moment, really. Faraddana. So that's not all one word, actually. The fa is sort of so or and. Radda, the verb radda, means to be rejected or to be turned away. Faraddana. So we were rejected. We passed by the house of a beloved one and we were rejected. Often Arabic poetry does this as well, is that the first shatr should actually be connected to the second shatr. It sort of finishes in a place that makes us carry on reading. عن الدار. So it should actually be فردنا عن الدار. We were turned away from the house. We were turned away from the house of the loved one. But by what? Is the question. But by what? What is the fa'il? What is the thing that is turning us away? قانون الأعادي. So قانون means law, literally. I think actually the English word canon, when we think about canon law, I think actually that comes from qanun. I've certainly heard that argued strongly by Arabs before. But عن الدار قانون الأعادي. So this is the qanun, the laws of the al-a'adi, which is the plural of the word adu, or is at least from that word, definitely. Al-adu is the enemy, al-a'adi the enemies. So the laws of the enemies. We were turned away by the laws of the enemies. And what was suruha, and its walls? Why it's hair on the end, not entirely sure. Sometimes poetry can break grammar rules as well. There's something which they call poetic license. In the Arabic language, they have poetic license. Poets can bend the rules of Arabic grammar a little bit to make things rhyme or to make things fit a bit better. Or even sometimes it's not even the bending of rules. It's just I suppose it is really, but it still makes sense. Like for example, sometimes we know that if something's غير عاقل, if something's like unconscious, if something's not capable of being aware of Allah, things like houses or cars or phones or computers, like the plural of those things we treat as feminine singular in Arabic. That's just a rule. But poets, for example, could personify something by using the plural and not using the feminine singular to describe it. Like if you were going to say like the houses were weeping or something, if you wanted to personify them, or that the houses missed their inhabitants or something like that when they went on holiday or something like that. If you're going to do something poetic like that, then you can personify things like that. It is bending the rules of grammar, but it makes sense. So perhaps that's what's going on here. وَسُورُهَا. I'm not quite sure it's وَسُورُهَا because al-a'adi, they're people, right? They are a'adi, they are enemies, but they are also still people. So, and they are also capable of being aware of Allah Azza wa Jal. They are aqil. So it wouldn't be quite right to refer to them as ha, but here the poet does so. Good. Okay, so we passed by the house, a house of a beloved one, a house of someone who we love, but we're rejected. But we're rejected from the house by the laws of the enemies and their wall. A sur is a wall. So should we do a bit more? How long have we been going for? We can do a bit more, I reckon. Okay, فقلت لنفسي ربما هي نعمة فماذا ترى في القدس حين تزورها. فقلت لنفسي, that's quite nice. فقلت, so I said, لنفسي, to myself, ربما هي نعمة, maybe it's a blessing. ربما هي نعمة. Yeah, ربما is just a way of saying it's a maybe, perhaps. هي نعمة, maybe it's a نعمة, maybe it's a blessing. فماذا ترى في القدس حين تزورها. فماذا, so what? ترى, what do you see? في القدس, what do you see in Jerusalem? حين تزورها, when you visit it. You know what? Yeah, حين is a way of saying when, but it's there's a number of ways of saying when. Like when it's a question, you say متى. When you're setting the scene for something in the past tense, you say لما. You know, when I was young, I used to do this or whatever. But when you're using it like this, when you've already kind of set the scene, you're saying when we go to the market or something, or you know, you're talking about when you're at the market already. And then you say when we bought grapes, we used to eat them straight away or something like that. Good, that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. That kind of that connects really nicely with the end of the poem. You know, so فَمَاذَا تَرَى فِي الْقُدْسِ حِينَ تَزُورُهَا. What do you see in Jerusalem when you visit it? And the poet later, Tamim al-Barhgouthi, later in the poem, talks about how even though there's all these different kinds of people in Jerusalem now, there are children, really 16, 17-year-old children who are the soldiers there, turning away people whose homes are actually there. Do you know what I mean? You know, even though all these things are going on, you still just see the Arab people there. Like, the place is an Arab Muslim place, regardless of these temporary occupations that go on or whatever for a short time. You know, because in the end, the last it's not organized into columns, but the last bit at the end, if I can remember it, is we'll get to it, but I'll just say it to you for now, and I'll summarize it. لا تبكي عينك أيها المنسي من متن الكتاب. لا تبكي عينك أيها العربي واعلم أنه في القدس من في القدس لكن لا أرى في القدس إلا أنت. It says at the end. So لا تبكي عينك أيها المنسي من متن الكتاب. You know, don't let your eyes weep. Don't cry. Literally don't cry your eyes. You know, oh, you who have kind of been forgotten and erased from the books, erased from like the book of history. Yeah. لا تبكي عينك أيها العربي واعلم أنه. So, and do not cry your eyes, oh you Arab, and know that indeed في القدس من في القدس. You know, whoever's in Jerusalem will be in Jerusalem. You know, whoever's there will be there. But لا أرى في القدس إلا أنت. But I don't see anything in Jerusalem except for you. Yeah, so it kind of comes back around to that message. It's really beautiful. Good, we're going to end it there, inshallah. We'll do some more abiyat, in the next lesson, inshallah. If you have any questions, stick them in the comments below, and I really look forward to reading those. If you have any questions about the grammar or anything like that in particular, next time we will unpick it with a little bit more detail. Like today's lesson was a little bit more about Arabic poetry terminology for approaching the study of Arabic poetry and Arabic literature in general, and and we sort of glossed over the first two baits of this poem of our sha'ir that we're covering now, Tamim al-Barhgouthi. So lastly, we'll end on saying thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. We have reached today over 4,000 subscribers, which means that there are at least 4,000 people in the world who, number one, want to learn Arabic, and number two, can bear looking at my hairy head and face for the duration of a video. So that's encouraging for me. So thanks for being part of it. Onwards and upwards, inshallah. Obviously 4,000 is really cool. It's a huge milestone, but obviously we'd love to grow the channel. We'd love to reach more people with the Arabic language and more people who want to take it seriously. Hopefully you guys enroll in my program as well, inshallah, if that's something you're interested in. So that's everything for the video. Hope to hear from you guys soon. Have a really lovely evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.